The city of Eldridge plunged into darkness on a sweltering August night in 2025, the air thick with the weight of a heatwave that had baked the asphalt for weeks. The power grid, a creaking relic of decades-old infrastructure, buckled under the strain of a million air conditioners gasping in unison. Without warning, streetlights flickered out like dying stars, their sodium glow snuffed into nothingness. Traffic signals went blind, intersections becoming silent battlegrounds of confusion. The omnipresent hum of urban life, air conditioners, neon signs, the distant thrum of subways fell silent, replaced by an oppressive void that seemed to swallow sound itself. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, their cries growing weaker as backup batteries drained, until even they were consumed by the blackout's eerie hush. For the first time in decades, Eldridge, a sprawling metropolis of glass towers and forgotten alleys, was truly blind. In the high-rise apartments of downtown, Sarah Klein, a 32-year-old journalist for the Eldridge Gazette, fumbled in the dark for her phone. The screen's faint glow revealed a cluttered studio apartment, papers strewn across a desk littered with coffee mugs. Her battery was at 12%, a cruel joke in a city now cut off from its lifeblood. A seasoned reporter, Sarah was no stranger to chaos. Her career had been forged in covering riots, scandals, and natural disasters. But this felt different, primal, as if the city itself had exhaled a long-held breath of dread. She activated the flashlight app, casting stark shadows across her walls, and opened X to post a quick update. Blackout hits Eldridge. No word on cause or recovery. Stay safe, folks. Eldridge blackout. As she hit send, a scream pierced the silence from the alley below her 14th floor window. Heart pounding, she crept to the glass, peering into the abyss. The darkness was absolute, a black canvas where her imagination painted horrors. Flashes of gleaming knives, faceless figures, blood pooling unseen. She strained her eyes, but saw nothing, only the echo of that scream lingering like a ghost. Whispers spread faster than the outage itself. By midnight, with cell towers running on dwindling backups, social media buzzed with fragmented panic. Posts on X, erratic and typo-laden, fueled a growing hysteria. Power's out citywide, heard explosions near the plant, terror attack, one user wrote. Another, more chilling, read, "The blackout butcher is out there. Strikes in the dark, no. Lights, no witnesses. Eldridge blackout." The name caught like wildfire, a moniker born from urban legend but now terrifyingly real. Reports trickled in, each more gruesome than the last. A jogger found in Central Park, his throat slashed with surgical precision, blood soaking the grass. A delivery driver vanishing mid-route, his bike found abandoned in a pool of streetlightless shadow, handlebars streaked with crimson. The killer, they said, was a shadow incarnate, gliding through unlit streets, feeding on the city's mounting fear. On X, a grainy photo circulated, a blurry silhouette in a hooded cloak, a blade glinting faintly in moonlight. "This is him," the caption read, "the butcher." Detective Marcus Hale, a grizzled 45-year-old with a permanent scowl etched into his face, gripped his service pistol tighter as he navigated the precinct's flickering halls, lit only by an overworked emergency generator. The outage had crippled their systems. Surveillance cameras were dark, databases inaccessible, radios spitting static. "This isn't random," he muttered to his partner, Lena Vargas, a sharp-eyed detective in her early 30s who joined the force after a stint in cybercrime. "The timing's too perfect. Grid goes down, and this psycho starts carving people up." Lena nodded, her flashlight beam cutting through the precinct's gloom. The phones hadn't stopped ringing since the blackout hit, each call more frantic than the last. Residents reported glimpses of a tall figure in a hooded cloak, its blade catching the faintest glimmers of moonlight. One survivor, a barista named Jamal, lay in a hospital bed, his arm bandaged from a deep gash. "It wasn't human," he stammered to Marcus, his eyes wide with terror. Eyes like voids, staring right through me. It whispered my sins back, every mistake I ever made, like it knew me. Marcus scribbled the account in his notepad, his jaw tight. The story didn't add up, but the fear in Jamal's voice was undeniable. Eldridge descended into paranoia as the night wore on. Looters smashed storefronts under cover of darkness, their shadows darting through unlit streets. But even they whispered of the butcher, glancing over their shoulders as they fled with stolen goods. Families barricaded doors with furniture, candles flickering like fragile wards against the unknown. In the projects, gangs armed themselves, not against rivals, but against a spectre no one could name. Sarah, ever the journalist, refused to hunker down. Armed with a handheld recorder, a pocket knife, and a dwindling phone battery, she ventured into the streets, her sneakers crunching on broken glass. She found a makeshift shelter in a high school gymnasium where volunteers distributed glow sticks and bottled water. There she interviewed survivors, their faces gaunt under the chemical green glow. A widow, clutching a rosary, sobbed as she recounted her encounter. He knew my name, said I'd failed my husband, just like the cancer did when I couldn't afford his chemo. Another, a young nurse, whispered, "It told me I'd killed a patient with a wrong dose. I never told anyone that." Each story fed the myth. The butcher wasn't just killing, it was judging, dredging up buried guilts and carving them into flesh. By dawn's false promise, the sky a sickly grey, the power still out, the body count had risen to 7. Marcus and Lena pored over reports in the precinct's war room, a cramped space lit by a single flickering bulb. The victims were isolated, vulnerable, each with a history of regret. A banker, notorious for embezzling millions, was found gutted in his penthouse, his safe cracked open and empty. A teacher, once accused of abusing a student, was discovered in her classroom, her body arranged like a macabre tableau, chalkboard scrawled with the word guilty. "It's like the city's conscience come to life," Lena said, rubbing her temples, her voice frayed from lack of sleep. Marcus nodded, but doubt gnawed at him. No fingerprints, no DNA, no physical evidence, just shadows and screams. The precinct's forensic tech, a wiry man named Patel, shook his head over grainy photos. "These wounds, some look self-inflicted," he said, "but the precision, it's uncanny, almost ritualistic." Sarah's investigation led her to Eldridge's underbelly, the subway tunnels where the homeless had carved out encampments around battery-powered lanterns. The air was thick with mildew and despair, the tunnels a labyrinth of flickering light and echoing drips. An old man named Elias, his eyes milky with cataracts, grabbed her arm as she passed. "Ain't no man doing this," he rasped, his breath sour with cheap whiskey. "It's the fear. This city's rotten, corruption in City Hall, families starving while skyscrapers gleam. Blackout strips the light, lets it out. The butcher's what we made." Sarah dismissed it as the ravings of a broken mind, but as she climbed back to street level, a chill followed. Footsteps echoed behind her, soft and deliberate, stopping when she stopped, moving when she moved. She gripped her pocket knife, her pulse hammering, but when she turned, the tunnel was empty, save for the oppressive dark. The blackout stretched into its second day, and Eldridge unravelled further. Generators failed one by one, as if the darkness itself sabotaged them. Riots erupted in the projects, fires blooming like infernal flowers against the grey skyline. The butcher struck again. A politician, infamous for pocketing bribes, was found eviscerated in his limousine, his driver babbling about a figure that melted into smoke when headlights briefly pierced the gloom. Social media, now a patchwork of conspiracy theories, amplified the terror. "The butcher's a ghost," one ex-user posted. "City's sins come to life. Eldridge blackout." Another claimed, "It's the feds testing some psyop weapon." Sarah, holed up in a community centre, scrolled through the posts, her battery now at 3%. The stories were inconsistent, yet the fear was universal. She wondered if Elias was right, if the butcher was less a person and more a manifestation of the city's collective guilt. Marcus chased a lead to the old power plant on Eldridge's outskirts, a hulking skeleton of rusted steel and cracked concrete. Engineers worked frantically to restore the grid, their faces smeared with sweat and grime. "Sabotage?" Marcus asked the foreman, a stocky man named Ruiz. "No, sir," Ruiz replied, wiping his brow. "Overload from everywhere. AC units, data centers, hospitals. It's like the system's fighting itself, shutting down to protect the core." Marcus nodded, but his attention drifted to the plant's dim corridors, where shadows seemed to writhe. As he explored, a whisper slithered into his ear, his own voice, low and accusing. "You let her go, Marcus. Chose the job over her. Now she's gone." His wife Ellen had left him years ago, unable to compete with his obsession with unsolved cases. He spun, gun drawn, heart hammering, but saw only shadows coiling like serpents. "Get it together," he muttered, but the whisper lingered, burrowing into his mind. Sarah, now broadcasting from a pirate radio setup in a friend's basement, urged calm to anyone still listening. "We can't let fear divide us," she said into the mic, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "Stay together, stay safe." But midway through, static crackled and a voice intruded, low and venomous. "Sarah Klein, liar to the masses. You buried that story on police brutality. To save your job, you let those kids die in silence." Her blood ran cold. She'd killed the story 2 years ago, pressured by her editor and threats of a lawsuit. No one knew, not her colleagues, not her friends. She ripped off the headset and bolted from the studio, the city a labyrinth of black. In an alley, panting, she felt a presence. Cold breath on her neck, the faint graze of a blade against her skin. She swung her knife blindly, hitting nothing but air, and ran until her lungs burned. The climax came at midnight on the 3rd day. Marcus, Lena, and a SWAT team converged on City Hall, where frantic reports placed the butcher. The building was a tomb, its marble atrium pitch black, the air thick with the stench of fear sweat. Gunfire erupted as the team swept the halls, muzzle flashes illuminating horrors. Teammates turning on each other, screaming accusations. "You let that kid die in the raid," one officer yelled, firing wildly at his partner. "You took that bribe," another shrieked, swinging a baton. Marcus realized too late. The killer wasn't external. It was them, their guilt and paranoia erupting in the dark. He radioed Sarah, now barricaded in her apartment, her door reinforced with a bookcase. "It's not real," he gasped, dodging a stray bullet. "The blackout, the isolation, it's breaking our minds, the butchers us." Psychologists later called it mass psychogenic illness, amplified by the blackout's sensory deprivation. Eldridge's collective fears, guilt over corruption, inequality, personal failures, had birthed a shared delusion, fueled by whispers on X and the absence of light. Autopsies revealed the truth. The victims weren't slashed by a killer. The banker had died of a stress-induced heart attack, his wounds self-inflicted in a frenzy. The teacher had fallen on broken glass, her paranoia driving her to scrawl guilty in her own blood. The jogger, the politician, the others, all succumbed to accidents or panic, their minds conjuring a phantom that never existed. The butcher was a myth, born from rumors that spread like a virus in the dark. Power flickered back on at dawn on the 4th day, bathing Eldridge in harsh fluorescence. The city counted its dead, 27, not 7, as more bodies were found in the chaos. Sarah's article headlined the Eldridge Gazette, "The Blackout Butcher, How Fear Killed a City." She detailed the psychological collapse, the way isolation and rumors had turned neighbors into monsters. Marcus retired a month later, haunted by whispers that lingered in quiet moments, his own voice accusing him still. Lena stayed on, determined to rebuild trust in a broken city. Eldridge repaired its grid, its streets, its facades, but the scars remained. In every unlit corner, every flickering bulb, the fear waited, patient and eternal, ready for the next eclipse.